Hey everybody, it's Galmadex, and welcome back to another premiere draft of MTG Foundations. Without further ado, let's get into a pack one, pick one. It's always a good day when I get to pack one, pick one of Vampire Nighthawk. Love black in the format, love Vampire Nighthawk. It's been one of my favorite draft cards since Zendikar, the original Zendikar back in 2009. This card was absurd then, it is still absurd now. Really hard to outrace a flying lifelinking threat, and whenever you're on the defensive, you just trade this off into their biggest card and still gain a couple points of life. So I'm super high on Vampire Nighthawk. I think it's a tiny, 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 tiny bit better than like Burst Lightning and Eaten Alive here. Particularly Burst Lightning, that's the really efficient one, just 1 mana, 2 damage. But both of these are really good removal spells. Mild Mannered Librarian's good 2 for 1, drawing you another card. Bite Down is the weakest of these 3 removal spells. I would not start with that over one of these other 4 cards. And then after Bite Down, or maybe even tied with it, there's like Burglar Rat here, maybe Prideful Parent. Really strong pack, actually, overall. Pick 2, speaking of strong packs, they took a rare, probably, I'm assuming. This might have been a double rare pack. It has the Seer Slicer Goblin still in it. 2 mana, 2/1 at the beginning of your end step. If you attack this turn, create a 1/1 red goblin creature token. This card is absurd. If anybody attacks, you get a goblin token. It's not too hard to get that to trigger at least once, in which case 2 mana for a 2/1 and a 1/1 is a very good deal. If it goes any farther, it's a ridiculously good card, so I think Seer Slicer Goblin over Burst Lightning, but passing 2 Burst Lightning in a row is pretty sad. That is a little disappointing. Obviously, somebody on our left is almost definitely hopping into red, so in pack 2 we won't get a lot of red cards, but if we notice a lot of red getting passed in pack 1, then we can still absolutely play red as a color, because we'll get red in pack 1 and pack 3, and that's more than enough for half of a deck. So we'll take the Seer Slicer Goblin. Pick 3. All right, double ruby. Try to take 1 ruby and wheel the other. There's also a Llanowar Elves, though, so that probably puts somebody in green. I don't think the Llanowar Elves comes back, but somebody probably takes Llanowar Elves before ruby. We might be able to take a ruby and wheel another ruby. I don't think these black spells are very good. I think Big Fin Bouncer and Llanowar Elves are the best mono-colored cards, but ruby is the best color, or the best card, regardless of color. If you disregard the fact that she's only going to go into one specific deck, I'm going to go ruby here. Could be a really fun green-red. Oh yeah, green-red raid deck. We get a second copy of Ruby now. And she is just, well, maybe not the best card. Guarded Air is really good at 6 mana. 6 mana is a lot, but this completely stabilizes you. A 1/1 lifelink and 2 3/3s. It's a huge board state. I've been able to cast this post like Day of Judgment, like right after they've cast a board wipe too, and that always feels incredible. But Ruby's still really good, and having 2 Ruby in a row gives us a super clear direction. Hard to stick to that direction for just a decent common, overtaking an incredible uncommon Arbiter of Woe here, though, so there's the Arbiter of Woe. Whew, and a pick 6 Eaten Alive. Speculated on some rubies here. The mono-colored cards in those packs were quite a bit weaker than the rubies, so I don't feel super bad about the speculation, but it doesn't look like it's paying off since we're getting really good black spells passed to us still. I think we are going to stick to black as a color and maybe just be Rakdos still. The Gorehorn Raider, definitely my favorite card out of this pack. Pick 8. Okay, now there's no black or no red, so I'll speculate on a green card. Beastkin Ranger's fine. Bite Down, fine. I'm not going to play all 3 of these colors, so I'm not taking the green-black duel. Not trying to do 3 color in this format, basically, ever. Pick 10. I think this was the double ruby pack, so somebody did hop onto the ruby. But Snare Spinner's still a good green card. Still enough better than the kind of mediocre black spell to take that. The best thing about Blight Priest is if you randomly open the Mythic that lets you gain life whenever an opponent loses life, then you can go infinite and kill somebody. Outside of that, it's not a very exciting card. Okay, pack 2, pick 1, and we open up a white mythic rare. Well, that's tragic, because I don't think we're in white. There's almost nothing black, though. There's literally nothing in red. And the only black card is Seeker's Folly, which is just okay. I'm only 3 cards deep into red. Guess we could turn this into black-white here. This card is very strong. Whenever one of your non-angels dies, it comes back as a flying angel with a +1/+1 counter. Yeah, let's grab Valkyrie's Call. Okay. Definitely a black spell over a white spell here. If I want removal, I take Bake into a Pie over Banishing Light, and I think I do. We just have the Eaten Alive here. I'll take removal over Infernal Vessel, although I do think Infernal Vessel is quite good. Pick 3. This pack's pretty bad overall, but Stromkirk Blood Thief is actually a really good combo with Vampire Nighthawk, because you keep flying over and hitting them, and then you keep putting counters on the Nighthawk. This card's okay by itself. I mean, it'll make itself bigger, but if you have the Nighthawk, you can do really nasty things. That's a really cool Grim Tutor, but Grim Tutor's also very bad in draft. We're going to take a Tiny Bones here, which is actually pretty good. It's a 2-mana 1/3 that basically demands removal from your opponent. If they don't kill it, it's going to be ripping their hand away and then casting it against them. So oftentimes you're going to play Tiny Bones and then it's just going to get Banishing Lighted or something. But it is still worth it as that Lightning Rod for removal. Here's the Infestation Sage to give us a good creature to sacrifice for Eaten Alive and potentially other cards. I don't quite want to grab the Black-Red duel over the Sage. I think it's one of the better cards to sacrifice. There's Pilfer, which is really fun with Tiny Bones, so I'll grab that. Diregraph Ghoul's fine, 1-mana 2/2. Reassembling Skeleton is either super mediocre or pretty good, and there's kind of no in-between. You really need a repeatable sacrifice card to make this good, like a Hungry Ghoul or something, and we don't have any right now, so I'm not going to speculate on it. Maybe we could just play mono black, because I just love black, and it's very open in this draft. Yeah, I mean, these cards are all mediocre. Take the on-color mediocre spell. Ooh. Pick 10 Mild-Mannered Librarian? Like a 4-mana 3/3 that draws you a card. It's a pretty good rate. I also really don't mind Snakeskin Veil. Okay. It was about the least expected way for this draft to go, but am I Golgari? I think I'm Golgari. Gauntlet drafting green in Foundations again? Twice in a row? This doesn't make any sense. We're in reverse world right now. Alright, pack 3, pick 1. I want to help this curve out quite a bit, so the Hungry Ghoul is certainly high on my radar. That said, I'm also a big idiot, and Stromkirk Blood Thief Vampire Nighthawk sounds hilarious, and I'm just going to lock it in. Double Blood Thief with the Nighthawk. So worth it. Probably want to end up cutting these Blight Priests if I can, since I've got all these other 3-mana things to do. Stromkirk Blood Thief plus Vampire Soulcaller is also pretty threatening. Just any flying vampire getting a +1/+1 counter every turn. It's pretty scary. I'm still pretty low on removal. I think I have to take Stab here, but I do like Billowing Shriek Mass and Burglar Rat as cards. It's just that Stab is really efficient removal, especially in a deck that's getting into combat a lot, which is most decks in draft, but especially like a green-black deck like this, so that you can use this to kill even bigger creatures if your creatures end up in combat. I'm never going to be able to play Coma in this format. I'm just not in blue. Oh my god, we have double Vampire Nighthawk, double Blood Thief. I can't pass that up. But there's 2 Llanowar Elves in this pack just staring at me, being like, come on, please, we're here. Llanowar Elves is excellent. One of the best reasons to be in green, playing your 3 drops on turn 2. But I can't. I have double Blood Thief. I'm doing the thing. Double Blood Thief, double Nighthawk. Let's go. Never look back. Pick 4, suppose is a Giant Growth. I don't think we really care much about pick in this deck. We're not curving into super high mana stuff that often. Well, now we are a little bit more. There's a second Arbiter of Woe that I'm definitely taking. Now pick looks somewhat reasonable over Giant Growth. Green-black duel over another 3-drop. I've got a lot of them. And I'm not cutting Blood Thieves or Nighthawks. Bushwhack is pretty good with Treetop Snare Spinner. It's a great creature at fighting with Bushwhack, but the rest of our creatures aren't the best at it. I mean, am I really taking a Soul Shackled zombie over it, though? That's not the most exciting. I'll still grab it here. Pick 8. I already cut 2 Blight Priests, so if I take another, I'm just going to cut it, but same with Giant Growth. Another Vampire Soul Caller, sure. This is a lot of them, but this is what it is. Happy to play a Burglar out with Tiny Bones. And really happy to get another 2-drop here. That super late Wary Thespian is incredibly helpful. I'm gonna have to cut just a couple cards before we get into the game. Probably one of these Soul Callers. Definitely this one. But probably another Soul Caller and like a Giant Growth, I suppose. Maybe a Diregraph Ghoul. But I am still pretty low on low mana stuff. I could cut the Bushwhack. I mean, got Eaten Alive, Stab, Bite Down, Bake into a Pie. Those are all better removal spells. And my creatures don't get that big that often for fighting. And I really don't care about the mana fixing of the Bushwhack. Although it has that flexibility of being able to run it over your 17th land, because you can always cycle it away to hit that land if you're not using your mana on other stuff. But it kind of looks like we're using our mana on other stuff most of the time. This deck looks actually pretty cool. Pretty into this. I'm thinking Bushwhack, Giant Growth are getting cut. Or one of the Soul Callers. And I really love Arbiter of Woe as a 6-drop. I'll keep a Bushwhack in towards hitting 6 mana more often when I want to filter that into a land and cut Growth and a Soul Caller. We'll do that. Yeah. Very solid looking deck here. I mean, only one rare, just a Tiny Bones here, and that's not the biggest bomb ever, so it's not a deck with a super high level of like individual card quality in terms of like bombing opponents out or anything, but it looks really consistent. It has some really nice synergies in it with like the Nighthawk Blood Thief nonsense going on. Bite Down's very good with double Nighthawk and a Snare Spinner. The Arbiters have some decent creatures to sack like Burglar Rat, Infestation Sage. Got some good stuff going on in here. And some Tiny Bones combos with Pilfer and a Burglar Rat. So it's going to be a pretty fun deck. We'll see if it's a pretty good deck as we head into the gameplay and see how it does. All right, I already love this deck. Wary Thespian into 2 Vampire Nighthawks. That is a dream hand for me. Playing against a red deck. Hopefully they're super aggressive so that Nighthawk life gain is super, super viable. The Stab as well gets active when they're playing cheap creatures. Ah, blue-red. Like the slowest red deck in the format. The most controlling red deck. That's not what I wanted to see. They probably have an Essence Scatter in their hand if they're thinking this long. And while normally I'd be super fine with them just scattering my 2-drop, I really don't want them to scatter this because I need mana. I have to mill any non-land with this, so the Surveil is very helpful. We did Surveil away a 6-drop. It's a powerful spell, but that's what Vampire Soul Caller is here for. There's the Burst Lightning on the Thespian. I'm really happy with that. I will take my second Surveil. I need mana bad, and we've just milled a 5-drop now as well. So our odds of drawing a land are getting higher and higher off those mills. And there it is, right on time. I can play around Essence Scatter by stabbing the Adept. Or I can just run out the Nighthawk. Because it is possible they don't have it, and they just were really thinking with their flash card and their burst lightning, do I want to burst it and then add up next turn? Or do I want to add up and then burst it next turn? Stuff like that. Maybe. Okay, we know they don't have another burst lightning style instant. Has to be a counterspell for their open mana, if anything. Yeah, I mean, Essence Scatter's cheap enough that if they have it, they're going to be able to cast it on the next Nighthawk, at worst. Because it's pretty easy to hold up just 2 mana. So we'll just jam the Nighthawk out. It looks like they did not have Essence Scatter. They were just thinking about their flash spells earlier. Ooh, Witness Protection's really bad for them here. Obviously, getting rid of a Flying Death Touch Lifelinker is good, but it is very relevant. Like a 1/1 on the ground is incredibly relevant. So we kind of get a 2-for-1 on them here, where our 1/1 on the ground gets to hold off their Elementalist Adept, or at the very least, force them to use a Prowess trigger to kill it. Whereas, you know, any other removal like an Abrade or something would just completely have the Nighthawk engraved by now. And they wouldn't be worried about this 1/1 stopping them from attacks like it did there. Well, if we don't need any mana, then I'm happy to pilfer and see what's going on in their hand. Land, Shivan. Alright, bad hand is bad. I'm just going to start sending in the legitimate business person because our lifelink very firmly wins this race. I don't even think I need to spend stab on Adept right now. I'm just going to hold on to it. They are flooding over there. Kind of the polar opposite ends of the spectrum here. Usually it's going to be better to be mana screwed than mana flooded because whenever you draw out of the mana screw, you have so many spells that you can really come back. But if you're mana flooded, like from this point on, they get to cast like 1 spell a turn maximum. They're pretty stuck here. Another Adept. All right, now I think that's enough pressure to kill one of them then. Alright, they've played every land that we saw, so we have no information on their last card in hand. It is not a counterspell, we know that now, and we have the Blood Thief Nighthawk combo. Just gain more and more and more life on each swing. This snowball is rolling down the hill. Self-reflection with only an Elementalist Adept on board, that's a little sad. There's our 4th mana. Vampire Nighthawk gets to keep doing its thing super well. Use a Snare Spinner to easily hold them off. I could play Wardens of the Cycle, but none of our creatures are going to be... Well, no creatures, period, are going to be dying during our turn for a little while, so it's not even going to trigger anyway. So I'll just get the Snare Spinner down and save Wardens for later. Banner of Kinship on whatever creature type those things are, I assume. Human. So all their humans get +2/+2. They get a big prowess trigger as well. But they have 1 card, and it is Self-Reflection, so we probably have lethal even if I don't cast Eaten Alive, but we definitely do if I do, so let's just do that. Alright. That is game. Start things off 1-0 heading into game 2. Alright, game 2. Not a very exciting hand here, but I don't think we can mulligan it. It's got great mana for whatever we draw into. The only concern, of course, is the chance of flood. Opening a 4-land hand definitely has a high chance of precipitation. Hello, Wardens of the Cycle. That's a good draw. Think twice. They have thought once. And then a Campus Guide hits the board. Card's pretty bad, so I'm fine with that. I shouldn't have played my land yet. Not that it's really going to change their decision here. I highly doubt they trade a Campus Guide into an Infestation Sage. But it is slightly more likely if I don't play the 4th land. Because playing the 4th land, then they know that I have the mana to be able to play a Wardens of the Cycle, which is the signpost uncommon for Golgari, where if they do take the trade, I get to draw a card, and it's an insanely terrible deal for them. But it's already a bad deal on board, so highly, highly, highly doubt they were planning on trading, even if I didn't play a land. Just want to get this Wardens down before they have their double blue up. So might as well see if we can get the Morbid trigger. Alright, now I'm open to stab here. Nighthawk at 2. Pilfer, and then depending on what they have, we Nighthawk or stab. Okay, we stab. We definitely stab. Whoa! Double Felling Blow and Bite Down. None of those are big enough to kill Wardens of the Cycle. Uncharted Voyage, I guess, is. Put it on top. Somehow Uncharted Voyage, the most annoying of these cards for us. Maybe even just want to hit their creature here, and then they're just on a hand full of mediocre removal. I think I hit the creature. Stab the Trickster to draw a card. They have all these cards in their hand that need a creature on their board, so they're just not going to block. And even if they do, it's a good deal. Okay, good deal is good. Then we draw a card. Yeah, so now they have literally no creatures on board, so 3 of their cards are completely stranded in their hand. So now they can pick between making us redraw the Wardens or just permanently killing the flyer. They'll make us redraw the Wardens. That is fine by me. I will happily redraw it. 3 completely dead cards in their hand. What do we do here? Probably mana efficiency. No, let's save the Soul Caller for better threats. Let's just get the Nighthawk down. Oh my god, the top deck is Snare Spinner? Well, that could not have gone better for them. I mean, I guess they did Surveil off of the Voyage, but they didn't know that they had a Snare Spinner on top when they chose to lose their only creature with Bite Down, Double Felling Blow. Man. Yeah, Snare Spinner was literally perfect here. So we need to Soul Caller Nighthawk back for sure. Snare Spinner can at least attack into Snare Spinner. They don't have double green, so they're just killing 1 creature a turn right now. Yep, kill Nighthawk. Mischievous Mystic. That is another fantastic draw with a Think Twice in their grave, but Burglar Rat is also a fantastic draw. Get them down to 1 of these removal spells. But I'm obviously pretty unhappy about this Mystic here. And we get to keep our Snare Spinner to keep getting swings in. They didn't hit the mana for the Mischievous Mystic, and we just hit the Eaten Alive. For their Snare Spinner, that's pretty huge. We gotta deal with Snare Spinner more than we have to deal with Mystic. Odds are that Burglar Rat will not be as impactful as just another threat with them at 7. I'm going to take the Nighthawk. It is possible, because they're going to have 2 cards in hand, plus like I think twice here that they will have a card left in their hand for me to Burglar Rat. But if I like reveal the Burglar Rat, they can kind of play around it a bit. Opponent is just on runner with insane draws. Mystic into Tachyova is perfect. Oh my god. And then, of course, we draw Tiny Bones if I had kept Burglar Rat. Still definitely have attacks here. This is sorcery only. Alright. Looks pretty sweet. Just Tachyova over there now. Got no flyers at 6 life. I think I have to Nighthawk over Tiny Bones. We're dealing 3 a turn in the sky. It's going to be 3 swings lethal. Nighthawk's still getting in there. Can make sure that the flying token does as well, thanks to +1/+1 counters. They only kill Snare Spinner with Tachyova, and then I kill Tachyova. But I think I still hold it back here for a turn, because its activated ability is so good. Maybe it was fine to attack there, because Tiny Bones' ability is also pretty good. And when they have Strix Lookout on board, everything they discard to Lookout goes under Tiny Bones for us to play. Probably just working on our raid card here, but we're at 23. I'm not going to block. Oh, it was a Morbid card, so it's really good that I didn't block. Let's see what Tiny Bones does. Okay, I'll just get both cards under Tiny Bones. I get a Giant Growth and a Mocking Sprite, and they are over it. Tiny Bones is really good against Strix Lookout, so that was pretty gross as a way to end that. I thought that game was going to end a long time ago in our favor. When we saw our opponent's hand and saw that they had triple removal that only works with a creature on board, and then they traded off their only creature, I was like, all right. So, I mean, we're pretty locked in, right? But then just the sequence of draws was really, really good from that point on. The Mischief and the Tachyova and just a bunch of other nonsense to keep rolling there, keep surviving much longer than I expected. We still got there in the end. That is 2-0 heading into game 3. All right, here we are on the draw for game number 3. I think we can keep this on the draw, but it's definitely risky. The amount of mana that we have is quite low, considering we have a 4, 5, and a 6 in here. And our first 2 draw steps are not lands, but if they don't kill this Tiny Bones, Pilfer goes really hard. And they don't kill the Tiny Bones, but that Cat Collector's a problem for sure. Alright, we did hit a land just in time, but I'm just going to Pilfer with Tiny Bones out. Pilfer plus Ghoul. They have Luminous Rebuke, Macabre Waltz, and Faker and Death. Oh, their hand is bad, especially if we rip their Rebuke. Then they just have Combat Tricks and a Waltz with no creatures in grave. This is looking like a really good start at this rate, but we saw what happened last game when I got too confident. But we've got a Tiny Bones on board, and we took their only way to kill Tiny Bones away from them. They have no other life gain in hand to go with Cat Collectors, so they just have a 3-2 and a 1-1 to try to get us with, and I've got the 2-2 blocker for the 3-2. It actually blocks both of them, because they're not going to want to attack Cat Collector into Ghoul, because that's a bad trade for them, and the 1-1 literally can't get past the 2-2. I mean, this feels like just a really gross position to just rip their hand against them here. We're not under enough pressure to not just do this. We can just keep doing this until they draw something that kills Tiny Bones, and whenever they do, we're going to have so much gas left over that it's going to be like 5 cards against 0. Because on board, they can't really hit us at all. I mean, I guess the Fake Your Own Death works pretty well. Okay, that's a really good draw. That's a disgustingly good draw. It's a good thing I have their Rebuke. They draw 2 cards if I trade here, so I don't think I trade here. I do need to draw land. Okay, Eaten Alive works, but it does let them draw 1 card if I Eaten Alive. Honestly, worth it. Draw your 1 card. This High Society Hunter's just way too stupid to leave around. Okay, there's the concession. They see me going for removal on Hunter, and they're like, no, this is so over with Tiny Bones, and that is fair. That is 3-0 heading into game 4. I love this hand. We are banking on them not having removal for Nighthawk. But if they have removal for Nighthawk, we can just try to get the Blood Thieves buffing each other. Plus I have the Soul Caller to bring it back from grave later, and the Soul Caller is a vampire as well. So the Blood Thieves put counters on the Soul Caller. This could be a really good hand. It depends on how interactive their hand is. Or if they have their own like bomb or something, the fact that we don't have any removal could get us killed. Okay. Show me Essence Scatter, but don't actually show me it because I'll cry. Thank you. Blue-red. That could absolutely have an Abrade or something. Ooh, I could harass them. We could Burglar Rat Pilfer instead of Blood Thief. That's more mana efficient. Means the Nighthawk doesn't get any bigger this turn, but I think that's fine in the grand scheme of things. Lose out on 1+1/+1 counter to make sure we know what we're dealing with. Okay, I guess we don't know what we're dealing with. Alright, opponent. Keep your secrets. Well, this way our Blood Thief didn't get refuted. Burglar Rat really good against Adepts. It's part of why the 2-1s in this format are so bad. Is because Burglar Rat enters the battlefield, makes you discard a card, and then possibly trades off into your 2-1. Ridiculous 2-for-1 if that happens. And same with the Cat. The 2-mana 1-1 that draws a card can do the same thing. Sure, slow me down a little bit. Nighthawk's back. Librarian's chillin'. We pass. Dragon Trainer. If they trade, I Soul Caller. If they don't trade, I Blood Thief. Arbiter of Woe Soul Caller is also really impressive, though. That actually might be impressive enough to do that instead. Let's just do this while they're tapped out, so I know I get to keep my 3/3, and this guarantees that 6th mana for the Arbiter. Or it makes it more likely. It doesn't literally guarantee it, but... And then I have 2 draws to hit the 6th land. Okay, the only spell they can have now is Essence Scatter to stop Arbiter of Woe. And if Arbiter of Woe resolves, we should be really ahead. Oh my god, there's two of them. Does it actually force the discard too? It's not even an instant in there? Oh, it's just an island, but still. Feels good. We're so far ahead. This deck just has all the 2-for-1s. 1-for-1 removal from our opponent. That's going to put them quite a bit ahead on board. We're taking a big hit here, but if we can survive, then again, we take the long game. Oh, I've got Nighthawk mana after this. But picking up an Arbiter of Woe is very tempting. I already have enough value here to win the long game. Let's just get a good blocker immediately. Although, double Blood Thief Nighthawk gains so much life, they don't outrace it. There's like infinite ways to play this game out that all look pretty strong, but this is the funniest way. I'm doing the thing that I wanted to do in the draft, so let's just do that. 4/5 Death Touch Lifelink now. Yeah, Soul Collar is really good with the Blood Thieves, because it's like, well, it can't block anyway, so might as well. Now that I'm gaining 4 on the swing, we'll send it in, and we just kill them next turn. Yeah, just another Soul Collar. Burglar Rat, I guess. Ditch another land. And now I can sack that to Arbiter of Woe next turn. Let's just make it more likely to hit lethal. We'll spread the love around with the Blood Thieves. This might be the best Stromkirk Blood Thief deck I've ever drafted. Kind of sick. It's kind of sick. That is 4-0 heading into game number 5. All right, here we are for game 5. We've got the Blood Thief Nighthawk combo again, and if they have removal, they're probably spending it on Tiny Bones. They've got an opening hand with like multiple removal spells, like Burst Lightning plus a Braid in a red deck, or Rebuke plus Banishing Light in white or something. Then they still have a pretty good shot here. That's what this deck is, or this hand is weak to. But without cheap interaction, this hand can go pretty crazy. And also, I love our opponent's username. We are up against Croissant. They're on blue-white flyers. Strix Lookout is the first play. They now desperately need to kill Tiny Bones, or they can never use Strix Lookout without giving us value. We've drawn land and land as our first 2 draws, which is pretty awkward. We started with a 4-lander, so we really don't want to draw more lands at this point. Plains. Pass the turn. Alright. They have a counterspell here. It has to be Essence Scatter, because they don't have double blue. Dang. That's rough. Well, without the Vampire for the Blood Thief, if Tiny Bones is still around next turn, I think I just tap them. Because even if our opponent uses a removal spell on Tiny Bones, we get the 2-for-1 locked in that way. We make them discard a card and a removal spell. And then obviously if they don't kill Tiny Bones, then we can kind of do what we did that other game where our opponent couldn't kill Tiny Bones. Pilfer plus Tiny Bones is just a really, really good combo, because the Pilfer always takes the removal to stop them from killing the Tiny Bones. So that might be the strongest card we could draw here, even though it doesn't fit into the curve well. If I could Pilfer, steal their 1 removal spell. wonder what they're thinking so hard about with just 1 mana here during our end step. 1 white mana? I'm like, what could this possibly be? The +1/+1 counter spell? They could be double queuing. You never know. They could be playing 2 drafts at once on 2 different accounts. They're just busy in the other draft. Or their T could be whistling. Weird, okay. So there's some really specific thing going on right now that wants them to have that be a 2/3. If I were smarter, I could probably figure out why they would want to do that right now. But I'm unsure. The only obvious thing would be them just making sure that they can race us as much as possible. If they're a blue-white flyers deck and I don't play any flyers, then the combat trick portion of Fleeting Flight doesn't matter at all anyway. It's literally just the +1/+1 counter, so getting that as soon as possible maximizes the damage output. But I don't think it's as simple as that. I think there's something weird going on here, potentially. Get it out of reach of stab while we're tapped out, maybe? Maybe that's the plan there? I don't know. Well, we 2-for-1 them at least off of Tiny Bones. They discard a card and spend a removal spell on Tiny Bones. Cool. If they don't spend removal on Tiny Bones, we're now insanely happy, because I will absolutely cast a Cathar Commando. Jam for 3, we're down to 14. They're stuck on mana, it looks like. Feybloom Trick to tap the Tiny Bones and stop us from using it to make them discard another card, because it is a sorcery speed ability. Okay, I can at least get a Cathar Commando down here and get some value. However, if I do that... Oh, okay. I was going to say, if I do that, I'm not playing anything to block the flyers, which is kind of a problem at 14, but if I draw Burglar Rat, I'm just going to Burglar Rat plus Commando, because Burglar Rat's so insane with Tiny Bones. I get a Micromancer? They could absolutely have removal in their hand, but here we are hoping it is like 4 mana removal, I suppose. I can only play their cards during our turn, so I have to Cathar Commando right now. Now if they draw into a Banishing Light that doesn't even work, I get to use their own Cathar Commando to save our Tiny Bones. But we are taking 4 damage in the sky every turn, minimum. If they have like an Empyrean Eagle, could absolutely still lose this game, giving all their flyers +1/+1. It's the Banishing Light, so Cathar Commando is going to come in clutch. We're not going to be able to immediately activate Tiny Bones next turn, but it's still going to be a big deal. If I had the mana to play Snare Spinner and Nighthawk, I would. But I don't have the mana to do that. So I think it's better to just play one of the two and pop the Banishing Light. I feel it's better to play the Lifelinker. Could have Blood Thief there and made the Lifelinker a little bigger. That's an option. But if they draw any removal like a second Banishing Light, they're just going to kill the Nighthawk and the counter would go away anyway. Ooh, boy. Yeah, there's the Empyrean Eagle I was worried about. That's a problem. Nighthawk makes it so they're only attacking with Strix Lookout at least. And then Snare Spinner is going to be a huge help here too. Although I don't have the mana to Snare Spinner and activate Tiny Bones. Can Micromancer for stab? Or Eaten Alive? Micromancer for stab or eaten alive? Micromancer eaten alive, exile the Empyrean Eagle here. Sacking Micromancer. Actually feels kind of viable. Oh, Bushwhack. Bushwhack's better. Bushwhack's way better. Oh my god. This is why we play Bushwhack? Actually insane? Yo, okay. So yeah, the Bushwhack's actually good because when you play your opponent's Micromancer to get the Bushwhack, it's insane. With Nighthawk on board. I completely forgot about Bushwhack. That's so good there. Okay, the 3/4 flyer is definitely good for our opponent. Back to having to play the Snare Spinner. But I have 8 mana now, so I can Tiny Bones them and play Snare Spinner. Cool. And then Snare Spinner putting counters on Nighthawk is going to win us this game. Slowly but surely, they're like super locked out. They have to play anything they draw immediately. And we have potential card draw engines getting set up here. Position looks filthy good. Drawn to a stab, not a bad one to hit. There's a land. I will play a land. Put 1 counter on this, but that's it for now. I think I'd rather just play Wardens. Hold up stab. Alright, let's go stab. And draw a card. This is such a brutal position here. Tiny Bones just being as rude as possible once again. But now we're like setting up other card draw engines and mana sinks and just the worst time for our opponent. They're down to 9. Set up the Blood Thief thing because it's the funniest thing we can do. And I can Tiny Bones their last card if it matters. It does not matter. And that is game. That's like 5-0 off the back of some sick Tiny Bones nonsense. Alright. I don't know if I should keep this, but I only need 1 green source for everything to be castable. And I am in love with Vampire Nighthawk. So I'm not mulliganing. Hungry Ghoul, turn 2 from the black-white deck. We've got an Arbiter at the top of our curve now. We've drawn exclusively spells so far, which isn't great. This hand wants lands, specifically green sources, but it's also not terrible because we've been drawing black spells. Okay, Bushwhack is actually terrible as a draw. Our opponent's black-white, so I give this Nighthawk a 5% chance of surviving. It did it, but that's because we're not surviving. Yeah, that's really bad. Down to 12. Hit my land here. Make somebody into a pie. Nighthawk holds off Savior. That's something. Ghoul is their biggest potential attacker. Rip the Ghoul out of here, maybe. Play something scarier and I'm just dead. This feels better than just going Blood Thief, because the Blood Thief isn't going to block at all. The Blood Thief is just attacking to gain 2 and just deciding I am not blocking anybody this turn. But this stops all of the Ghoul damage and potentially the Savior damage as well. Okay, that's a combat trick. I can't afford not to play into the combat trick at 12 life this early. Joust through? Okay, well that would kill it on an attack too. So that would kill it at any time, no matter what I do. And it's all swamps. No forests. Well, this was rough. But what are you going to do? I think we did, even with our opponent's really good curve out, I think we genuinely had a chance of stabilizing with green sources because of how good Snare Spinner plus Bushwhack is at like just blocking anything and also killing anything. But obviously without the green sources, this game is just going to be a loss. And there you have it. I'm not quite dead on board, but I am quite certain we're dead to a lot of different spells, so here comes one of them. Any removal spell in the game does it. I guess Make Your Move doesn't do it, because none of our creatures are power 4 or greater, but they would not have discarded Banishing Light to keep a Make Your Move. They would for Celestial Armor. That is 6 and 1, heading into game number 8. Oh, it's 5 and 1. I'm counting my chickens before they hatch. Another mono black hand. Oh, this one's less exciting. Obviously, Tiny Bones does just win a game if they have no removal, but one removal spell in this hand does nothing. Technically, Soul Clark can get the Tiny Bones back, but we saw how last game went. This is even riskier than last time. We'll take that mulligan here, and here we'll keep this ditching a 5-drop. I do need to hit lands, but we have one of each color, so they can be any lands, and we'll be fine. Llanowar Elves, turn 1. Green's best turn 1 play. I'm scared. Let's see what they got coming up. Loot, turn 2. Play an additional land each turn. Play an additional Llanowar Elves. They have 6 mana to activate Loot on turn 3. This is their board on turn 2. They have 5 mana on turn 2. They just go land, activate, loot, and I lose. Land, activate, loot. Put a 4 mana value or less creature on the board. I can't even attack into loot with that 4 toughness. Alright. Well. That seems strong. Turn 3, activate, loot. They hit Dwynen's Elite. Cool. I'll send in Diagraph as well while loot's tapped. We've already been 2 for 1 by loot. There's another 2 for 1 with Affectionate Indrik. But we've got 2 in our hand. Soul Caller and Arbiter of Woe are both 2 for 1s. I think we have to pick up Librarian. Draw more cards. Find a solution to loot. This would be an insane board for turn 5. Even if you disregard that I had to kill through a Dwynen's Elite and they got to activate an early loot. I mean, if their deck, they're mono green, if they don't have spiders, they could just die to our flyers. It's going to be hard to outrace. Okay. Oh. Well, I wanted to show off that we still had a game plan there and we might be fine, but definitely not to overrun. That was the coolest thing I've ever seen a green deck do in this format, but it was also absurd and unbeatable. Llanowar Elves into turn 2 loot, play an additional land, play another Llanowar Elves. Turn 3, you already have 6 mana to activate a loot. Good gravy. Alright. Opponent just assembled Voltron there, just wild shenanigans, and we are now 5-2 heading into game number 8. Alright, we need to draw land, but they can be any lands. We have both of our colors, and we can set up a Blood Thief getting counters on itself, starting on turn 3. So I think it's a fine start. Black-white deck from our opponent. There's the Helpful Hunter to draw them a card. Get a 1/1 on board. See if they want to chump with it, or if we get to trigger the Blood Thief. We do get to trigger the Blood Thief. Pretty nice. I do need another black source. I did say they could be any color, but I do need one swamp eventually. I guess I should have specified, because Arena's now just like, here's all the forests, my friend. See what they got here. Black-white, removal spell, Burglar Rat, Dazzling Angel, Plunderer. It's a very good hand. I have the bake into a pie for their Dazzling Angel. I can't get rid of both their removal spells. Oh, this is so awkward. It's Burglar Rat or a removal spell. I kind of feel like it's Burglar Rat. Because I can't get rid of all their removal before they kill my Arbiter. Anyway. Yeah, this is kind of whack. And I guess we could let them Burglar at the Arbiter and then Soulcaller it back if I hit removal. No, not the top deck Fiendish Panda. And we don't have the black source for bake into a pie anyway. Wow. If I kill the Fiendish Panda, they get the Burglar Rat back. Why was that the draw? Oh. Them's the breaks. That's so stupid. We could not have gotten punished harder. Literal perfect top deck is perfect. You got me on that one. But now we can Soulcaller the Arbiter. Plunder, set up the draw. Beast King Ranger. It's not do enough to care that much right now. They know I need a creature on board for Arbiter of Woe, so now they can just spend all their removal on each creature I play to stop me from casting Arbiter. Or not, they're tapped out of removal now. If they kill the Arbiter itself, it is significantly worse for them, because we get to draw the card and they have to discard a card. So I will happily do this. And then force them to tap out and kill Arbiter. I mean, that Fiendish Panda draw still put us insanely far behind. This is not a winning game plan or anything, but it is a plan. Okay. Discard a removal spell because they drew another one anyway. They just bake this into a pie, we bake the angel into a pie. They've got a squad rallier to draw like infinite cards. They have to mana sink into that though. I think I still have to bake the squad rallier instead of the flyer, but again, super far behind. It's not a super winning play, but it's all we got. Go down to 3. Got 2 turns to draw into something here, thanks to the food token. That is absolutely nothing. Still got 1 draw step, but I don't think we have anything in our deck that can turn it around from this position off of 1 draw. A land is definitely not that. Our one real choice in the game that mattered really at all was our pilfer decision, and a big reason of why we got punished so hard was completely out of our control. Just a Fiendish Panda top deck. Yeah. I mean, I think looking back at the game, seeing what they drew after the pilfer, had we pilfered a removal spell, we still end up losing that game handedly. Yeah. Just a loss on that. We are 5-3 for the final record out of this deck. Not a terrible record, but I think this deck was really, really good when we saw its synergy kind of popping off. Like, it was really, really powerful to have the Nighthawk Blood Thief nonsense, the Tiny Bones with Burglar Rat and Pilfer, stuff like that was great. There's tons of removals, so there's plenty of interaction. It's got pretty good mana. There's only 8 green sources and 10 black sources. But the reason there's only 8 green sources is because there are significantly less green cards and there are really important double black spells. So I think the 10-8 split is correct. Yeah, I really like this deck. This deck performed really, really well in the gameplay, and it felt like the only times we really lost were just getting outclassed in card quality or in draws. Just a little bit of variance there. I think the deck is solid. No issues with the draft itself, how I drafted, or really no issues with the deck itself. I think we ended up with a pretty great deck out of this draft pod. You just definitely can't win them all. Maybe some gameplay decisions and some rough draws stacking up against us, or just some great powerful plays and spells from our opponents. 5-3 will be the final record for today. But that is going to end today's video. As always, I'd like to thank my patrons and YouTube members for their support, as well as you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it and you're interested in seeing some more, you can always like, comment, and subscribe to tell the YouTube algorithm to send you some more in your recommended feed. If you'd like to catch me live, you can check out the Twitch channel in the link in the description below. And if you'd like to support the channel directly, you can check out the Patreon link in the description below. But other than that, as always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again soon for some more Magic Arena.